Hi, I'm Avery, and I thought it might be interesting for some people to have a new video series on sword training against a training dummy or a Pell pole. I've got one of these behind me, but if you don't have a Pell pole, you can use gently. You can use a tree, a little bit less gently. You can use a dead tree, a pole. I've used a corner in the house. You're not necessarily hitting very hard. You're just sort of training your mechanics. But before I jump in, I'd just like to ask if you find this video helpful and would like me to do a series on it, please let me know in the comments on YouTube. I don't really want to be wasting people's time because some people might come to that channel for a different reason. They want to watch other types of videos. So I don't want to put a whole bunch of other videos in if they're not interesting to people. So let me know if this is useful. That said, I kind of decided to start from the very beginning. So there's a lot of videos out there giving tips on different things you can do while training against a Pell pole. I'm going to start with the very fundamentals while I do some of my own training. So everyone's got a load of opinions. I've got a load of opinions as well. Just to get started, you don't necessarily need training gear. You can use a stick. You can use a broomstick with no broom head on it. I like using these plastic training swords. I also like using these Buhurt swords. They're not sharp. So I think you can train with just about anything, but if you do have access to something like a shield, I recommend using it because that way you get used to throwing around your own defense. If you fight with great weapons, you need obviously a lot of room. Here I don't have a lot of room to the left and right, so you just want to be careful if you're training inside. I am, because it's cold out. So when doing Pell training, like what's your objective, right? There's actually a few in my opinion. You can just be having fun. You can be warming your body up, you can be working on your flexibility, but I think what most people would recommend is that you really focus on your form. And whenever you're doing something like focusing on your form or training, it's for the purposes of increasing your skill usually. So you should be focused on a skill, right? There's 100 videos out there that'll say, yeah, you can swing at a Pell, anyone can do it. I actually think that that's useful if you're learning flow, but decide your objective up front. So right now my objective is to talk, which isn't, leaving me a lot of room to focus. I think if I try to talk while I do Pell work, I'm not actually demonstrating it well. So for instance, I'm going to attempt to do 10 simple offside shots, and I'm going to, those are shots that are gonna land on this side of the head, and I'm gonna try to do so while rotating my hips the same direction as the blade, and I'm really gonna focus. My objective in doing this is start from a guard, whatever your guard is. In this case, I'm just gonna start like this, and I'm going to attempt to carefully place the blow where I want it to be, and evaluate, did I do that well? In this case, I did not do it well. I didn't engage my hips, I didn't bend my knees, I didn't rotate, all I did was reach out with my arm. So I say to myself, okay, well, what could I do better? Let me focus on one of those. Let me get my hips rotated. All right, so if I rotate my hips, does that feel right? No, it felt like there was a disconnection between my hand and my hip. I've only thrown 2 shots, and I'm not throwing them hard. So what I'm encouraging you to do is think about your body mechanics as you throw. And that way, even throwing 10 shots at a Pell can be a relatively time-consuming but hopefully fruitful process. So what if I think to myself, I'm going to do this slightly differently. Instead of just rotating my body and letting my hand go out, I'm going to try to yank this hip back and I'm going to try to drive this hip straight forward. So instead of a rotation like this, I'm going to try reefing my body this direction and see if that does anything. Oh, that time, I felt a lot more connection between my shoulder, my hip, and my hand. Okay, so that feels good. Let me try that a couple more times and see if I can start building up a little muscle memory. A little disconnection that time. That time felt good. Oh, now as I'm evaluating, let's start thinking about something else. What am I doing? In my head, I've got a few things and I want to tackle them all at once, but it's better to break it down. So what's the first thing I noticed? I'm moving my shield out of the way a little bit and I'm popping it out a little bit. That's going to leave this leg exposed. So maybe I focus on, okay, now I've got my targeting, I've got my hips going, now I'm going to try to not lose any of that while I think about that one other thing. That sort of works, but I'm not happy with my knee movement, my right knee straightened. Let me see if I can keep my knee in a good position as I do this shot. Okay, now I feel like I've got those things in, but I feel like maybe I'm not getting the right power. This sword, I can get a lot of power by gripping with the bottom of my hand. So I'm going to add that, see if I can get a little whip at the end. as I make a fist at the end of the shot. Lock my knee out that time. That's starting to feel better. Maybe if I grab this other sword, it's going to make a little less noise for my neighbors, and I can see it's a little shorter, so I have to adjust, but I can still grip to get the whip at the end. I can still try to keep this knee from locking out. I can try to yank this hip back, drive that hip forward, hold my shield still. One by one, I've added these things up in my head, right? Let's see if I can throw it a little bit harder. That time, I caught myself, instead of throwing a shot in a single time, I cocked my hips to get a little power first. That's not what I'm training. My intention is to train that one shot right away. However, I started to drift a little bit and play around with things, but I should be focused. I should be trying to train. So I'm not gonna just start throwing different shots to experiment with them. I'm focused on one thing. So I'm not gonna wind up for power. I'm gonna try to throw it in a single time. I'm not gripping at the end. That's starting to feel like it's coming together. So the reason why I sort of broke things out that way was not to necessarily say, hey, line up against your Pell, do the exact same things I'm thinking, and think exactly the same way I am. It's to demonstrate my thought process as I go through a set of training shots. Ideally, I do that about 100 times with each hand. And because I am a little impatient and maybe I lack a little bit of discipline, sometimes I'll do like 30 or 40, and then instead of making a little adjustment, I'll try something else. I'll swap from this position, to the other leg being forward. Or perhaps I will change my starting guard. I'll go from here to here, or I'll change my target from the head to the leg. But that's because a lot of times when I'm doing Pell practice daily, I am trying to strike a balance between being super disciplined and doing the same thing over and over, which gives really good muscle memory, really good results. It's a little hard to focus, and in my case, trying to balance it and keep Pell work fun, so I'm motivated to do it every day. So for me, I'm trying to strike that balance, but I'm always trying to push, be more disciplined, don't just dick about, don't just throw shots. I should be trying to focus on improving my skills and my muscle memory. So anyway, that's a really quick video on just my approach to Pell work. If you find it to be helpful, let me know, and I can start maybe doing a series, maybe one video a week as I go through my daily Pell work. I'll keep track of ideas in my head, and at the end of the week, I'll try to wrap them all up, and maybe we can go through a progression together. Or if it's not interesting, that's fine. You can even leave a comment or just say nothing, and I'll see if it feels like this video gets traction. If it doesn't get traction, I'll go back to doing only the other types of videos, but if it does seem like it's something that you would like to see, let me know, and I'll do more. Thanks.